No? Okay. My name is Grzegorz Janoszka. I'm Polish, but the presentation will be in English, I was asked for. I work for LizWeb. Actually, a picture of me was in the previous presentation. However, there was nothing about a company, so I will briefly talk during the presentation very, very shortly about the company. So, well, there will be short introduction, but I assume everyone knows what IPv6 is, so there will be almost nothing about IPv6 what it is at all. I will tell about the history, how we, when we started, how we started, the assumptions we made, and the deployment plan we had. I hope it will be useful for some of you who are deploying or are thinking about the v6 deployment. I will show the current situation, how it is with IPv6 at LizWeb, and what we do to promote IPv6 among our customers, and some lessons we learned. The overestimated problems, I call it. I mean the issues which we were afraid of, but eventually it was not a big deal. And underestimated or unexpected problems, that means the things we were not fully aware of or we had no idea that could happen. And short, our plans for the future. So there are just 2 slides about who we are, because the brand is probably not known so much in Poland. So LizWeb was established in 1997 and is one of the biggest hosting providers. We have data centers in Europe, several in Amsterdam and Frankfurt, and in US 1. The yearly revenue is 70 million euros, so we are, well, there's a large distance between us and our colleagues from Global Crossing. We have about 40,000 servers and more than 10,000 customers. And our traffic, it's the real traffic, is about 1.25 terabit. I hope the number of zeros is correct, but it is more than 1 terabit per second, and each evening we have such traffic. You can easily check it at nog.lizweb.com. And there are 200 employees. 2 of them are here. It's me and my colleague Olga. She's also Polish, and she will be happy to answer any questions you might have about the company. Just also to introduce kind of environment we work in. LizWeb is a part of Alcom Group. So there are 4 companies. As you see, is LizWeb, which is hosting, is IPv6, which operates data centers. Fibering is a typical ISP. It provides internet and data transmission, and Data Center, which builds modular data center. Data Center is the youngest child of the group. So how we started? In 2004, we requested the first allocation, and that was a year when we decided that everything we buy have to support or have to have possible IPv6 support in the future. Also then we started some initial IPv6 transit and peerings, but it stopped because, well, there was not too much interest, and we had IPv6 connectivity, but mostly we didn't have anything to do with it. There was almost nothing in the network IPv6 enabled. Later on, in 2008, when I already joined LizWeb, we provided a server for 6 access. this is a company that provides tunnels, IPv6 tunnels. They have multiple POPs. We provide one of them, one of their POPs, and one of my assignments at LeaseWeb was to work on IPv6. So we started. In 2009, we had already the plan, and we did some tests, but actually, we did the full deployment a year later. You may wonder why it took us so long, because, well, the plan you may do, well, a couple of days, but let's call it weeks. And also for tests, usually you don't need too much time. But there was one thing that stopped us. I will talk about it later. So before you deploy something, especially IPv6, which is a new protocol, you have to make some assumptions. And the assumptions we made, the most important was that IPv6 has to be as similar to IPv4 as possible. So we planned not to use any IPv6 specific features, well, if they were not required. So we tried to disable RA mechanism almost completely, and the customers have to have public addresses as the gateway, not link local IPs. So everything we don't say about IPv6 as a new protocol, we say as a kind of IPv4-like. So the customers are less afraid of it. We provide dedicated and shared racks, and in shared racks the customer may have several IPs out of share IPv4 range. So we did exactly the same in IPv6. The customer in a shared rack gets at least 65,500 IPv6 addresses. Well, we hope it will be okay for anyone. And for dedicated racks, we assigned starting from /64 up to /48, usually with some granulation to limit the number of subnets and to allow the customer growth. We had the addressing plan, which was approved by the management. The initial IPv6 transit and peerings we had, well, they were already a couple of years old, so we had to renew some contracts. We had new peerings, new transit, so we had to work on IPv6 to get more connectivity. And before the real deployment, we had just about 4 or 5 IPv6 customers, and they were really customers who requested it, and not requested once, but they were really annoying about it. So they got some temporary assignment, but we told them we don't support it fully, and there are no SLAs and so on. We tried different setups, and we figured out which setups we will use, what are our best practices. Each company has some internal tools. We have them as well. So we had to improve them, and it hasn't been done yet fully. So we are still working on it. But well, we started. And to have our internal databases and everything to support IPv6. And well, we did announcement to the customers. Of course, it was it was kind of, how to say, limited. So we just said that we are ready, but we are trying not to, how to call it, not to make a lot of customers willing to request IPv6 because we were not fully ready. So that was well, that was an announcement, but not really big one.
Trying to manage the expectations.
Well, with IPv6 we still have to do some things manually, so it's not fully automated, and we were just afraid of a lot of requests coming in, and they could queue, and the customers could have well, bad experiences. So the current situation, we have, well, this is the data which is about 3 weeks old, but I think the numbers are not so, they didn't change much. So we have only 400 customers with IPv6 assignments out of, well, more than 10,000. So you see that the number is really, really low. And what is, well, optimistic, that more than half of those 400 customers use V6 for production traffic. Maybe they don't have everything on IPv6, but at least they have some production traffic on IPv6. We have one customer with one IPv6 only server without any IPv4 address. That was a big deal for us because we didn't expect anyone to need just IPv6 only server. So the customer got, well, just a normal server, and then we had to manually remove the IPv4 address. But at least we have one IPv6 only machine, and I believe the customer is still using it. We have about 706 access tunnels with about 250 routed subnets, but the traffic is not that big. It used to be slightly more in the past, but the recent months it averaged at about 100-120 megabits per second, peaked up to 200 megabits. So it's not too much. Well, if you compare it to the 1.2 terabit we do, so you see there is a huge difference in the numbers. And our total IPv6 traffic is hard to estimate, but we believe it's between 500 megabits and 1 gigabit. So it's also, well, it's less than 0.1% of the total traffic. It's not too much. And well, IPv4 are already depleted, and we are really looking forward to see more IPv6 usage, but at least this is what our customers do, and, well, we can't do much. So just one slide showing what we have. So our website has had IPv6 address for about 5 years, I believe. So many companies were afraid that some users would be not able to connect, but, well, we didn't have any complaint, maybe because not so many people visit the website, I don't know. Our mail is also handled by IPv6. Well, there are not too many IPv6 enabled mail servers, but at least we can pick it up. But we are not fully there yet because our name servers are on IPv4 only. It's mostly because the name servers are in the oldest part of the network, behind some really old firewalls, and, well, it's really difficult to change it. But we are working on it, and we hope till the end of the year the name servers will also have IPv6 enabled. What do we do to make our customers use IPv6? So each new customer, when he buys a server or a service, he's informed about what we provide, and there is an information about IPv6 possibility. However, we don't assign IPv6 addresses by default yet, at least. We have administrative fee for IPv4 addresses. So IPv4 addresses are paid, you may say. IPv6 is free of charge. It is, well, from one side it's because of our billing system, which was kind of complicated to deploy IPv6 there. But on the other side, we want to promote IPv6, and well, we have plenty of IPv6 addresses, so for next years they will be free. And on each dedicated server can have up to 16 IPv4 addresses, but only up to 5 are assigned automatically. All assignments above 5 IPs have to be justified with a well, it's really quick form, but one of the questions is, have you considered using IPv6 for at least part of your services? So each customers that want more, excuse me?
I'm sorry, but we are looking for the owner of the white Fiat Palio weekend with the number of plate W2WO2523. No? Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So each customer who wants more than 5 IPv4 addresses on his server has to answer such question. Well, usually half of the answers are no, and the other half is usually yes, but we can't make it now, or something similar. There is just, I believe, I've seen just 3 or 4 answers. Yes, we use it, but we need more IPv4. And we also use, well, social medias to promote IPv6, to build IPv6 awareness. Now some lessons we learned. I hope that it may be a good source of information for you. The things we were afraid of, but eventually they were not so serious. So we were really afraid about quality of IPv6, with people paying less attention to IPv6. IPv6 is usually less supported. There are not too many skilled people. Well, try to open IPv6 ticket at any of the providers. That usually takes much longer than with IPv4. But it wasn't that bad. We had just 2 or 3 issues with IPv6 traffic being affected and IPv4 not. So it was not so big deal as we afraid. We were also afraid that, well, we have, as I already mentioned, about 40,000 servers, and, well, you can imagine how many switches and other devices we might have. So we were afraid of, well, that with too many different vendors and models and software versions and so on, that there may be some issues. Actually, there were, but only one issue. I will talk about it later, but eventually it was not that bad. Of course, switches are layer 2, and layer 2 should be transparent for IPv6. But we have also some, well, we had also some firewalls, other systems, and it was not that bad. Also, what many people think is a really important issue is training of people to teach them about IPv6, how it works. Well, for us, it wasn't a big deal. Our network support guys, they just got one initial, well, really short introduction to IPv6, and then some training how to deal with the most common issues. And our sales support also knows that IPv6 is something we sell, and they know how many IPv4 addresses we sell, how many IPv6, and so on. So that wasn't a problem at all. Many companies think that it's important, but, well, for us it didn't. It wasn't. However, we had some problems we didn't expect. So one of the most annoying ones was with Juniper switches. Initially we had, well, D-Links, but it was from the dark past. And we had mostly Cisco and HP. Well, everything was okay with them, but then we started to deploy Juniper switches. And by default, they have enabled IGMP snooping, which blocks whole IPv6 traffic. Probably it's not a bug, because, well, at least many software versions were behaving exactly the same thing. So initially it was a it was a problem for us. We had to reconfigure all the switches we have, but then we changed a little bit the procedure to deploy new switches. So whenever a new switch is being installed, our support has just initial configuration. They copy-paste, and we disable IGMP snooping. However, it took us a while to discover it initially because, well, you have multiple different things, and IGMP is not, well, it's not IPv6 related, you think.
Only limited to the configuration in Juniper.
Yes, yes.
Switch configured on snooping box 1.
Yes, correct. And the internal software is really too complicated to update. So, well, I had some programming background, so I know a little bit about programming, but it seems there are too many IPv4 dependencies, and it's not really easy to change it because you update one module, but there are several dependencies, and it's really complicated to add IPv6. Well, of course, it depends on the quality of your software, but the software we have, some modules are, well, almost 10 years old, and, well, it was not easy. That is one of the reasons we had problems to build IPv6 addresses, and we still have to do some things manually. So this is the still ongoing process, and for sure it will take at least 2 years, I think, still. That is one thing I would like to say more. We assumed that with IPv6 our customers will use the public, just the normal IPv6 address as a gateway. So if they have IPv4 subnet, all the customers are used to use the first one or the last IP as the gateway. And we planned to do exactly the same with IPv6, but when we started some tests, well, we hit the wall. We realized it was not possible. With HSRP or VRRP on Cisco, you could only use local link local IP as the gateway. So that was contradicting with our assumptions, and well, we were really well, wondering what to do, and it took us a couple of months, and we were really close to go back to change the assumptions and to provide some significant difference between IPv4 and IPv6, but eventually it was June 2010. Cisco released software, I believe it was 12.2 SXI4, which can do public IPv6 addresses for HSRP and VRRP, so we were saved, but it took us at least half a year, so it caused at least half a year delay, if not more. Well, not really that. Well, we were informed that it is on the to-do list of Cisco, but we couldn't. Well, we couldn't force them to develop it faster. And well, you never know. The new versions come, and you never know the exact roadmap. So that was to come, but we didn't know exactly when. And of course, the servers still need IPv4 connectivity, but we hoped we will save some IPv4 addresses by providing IPv6 addresses to devices that don't need connectivity to the whole internet. So we hope to use it for switches, APCs, out-of-band access like ILO or DRAC. But for some switches we use IPv6, but not too much. I believe all of the APCs we have are IPv4 only, unfortunately. I heard that some DRAC versions probably can do IPv6, but well, we did some tests and it didn't work well. So Unfortunately, the best suited devices for IPv6 don't support it yet. So our plans for the future, we will keep our work on internal systems to provide more automation. Currently, if you order a server with LeaseWeb, if you just choose a ready server on the web page, in about 30 seconds or 1 minute, you get all the details. You have IP address, login, and password, and whatever. With IPv6, it's not the case. It has to be assigned manually, and the customer has to configure it on the machine. So we are working to deploy the servers with IPv6 already on them. Fortunately, it's really complicated with too many systems interacting each other, and you have DHCP, you have provisioning, you have billing, you have the website where you can order it. It's really difficult to deploy it. Our top, I'm not quite sure if it is top 10 or top 20, but our biggest customers, they don't use IPv6 yet. Well, they know we have it. They know they may have it anytime they need it, but they still don't use it. So we have a lot of 400 customers, but they are usually geek type people, the people that don't have too many servers, so they don't do too much traffic. So we have customers doing hundreds of gigabits sometimes, but they are on IPv4 only. Well, the plan is, as I already mentioned, to assign IPv6 already to all the customers by default. We don't do it yet. We plan to have as many as possible switches and other non-server devices on IPv6 only, well, if they only support it. And well, we are still working to expand IPv6 peerings. We do our utmost to have the same routing policies for IPv6 and IPv4. So the customer, while doing traceroute, he will have the same path on IPv4 and IPv6. Well, he should get the same path, but there are still some companies which we don't have IPv6 peering with, so we are working on it to provide exactly the same connectivity for IPv6 and IPv4. And our main website is on IPv6, but well, not all the servers and our name servers, as I showed you, are not enabled yet. So that's also our goal, but I hope it will be done till the end of the year. So usually there is a kind of consensus that access providers are the ones that have more issues and difficulties with deploying IPv6. Well, that's true, but hosting is maybe on the easy side, but it's not very easy to deploy IPv6. There are still some issues with software, with hardware, and well, the biggest obstacle are the customers. Despite IPv4 being depleted, we inform the customers that IPv4 addresses are gone, that we have some more for the business continuity, but we will be unable to provide them with unlimited source of IPv4 addresses. They still don't want IPv6. Yes?
Well, based on the growth that you have in the customers, when do you expect that your, let's say, IPv4 stock address will be consumed?
Well, looking at our current burn rate, we have IPv4 addresses for 3 years. However,
also taking into account the improvements that you are doing on network?
Yes. However, the company is growing really fast, and the growth is rather exponential than linear. And we started the cloud services. We sell some VMware environment, and it really catched the market, and there are many customers using it, and unfortunately they are using many IPv4 addresses. So That's one thing that causes our IPv4 usage to be slightly higher than it used to be, but we are working on it. Of course, there is IPv4 market, and you can buy IPv4 addresses, and we are, well, actively scouting the market for it. Yep.
How was you able to stockpile so much IPv4 addresses?
Excuse me, could you please repeat?
How you achieve so big stockpile of IPv4 addresses? You know, the RIPE policy was for 1 year into the future.
Yes. Yes, but well, there are old customer resigning or canceling or, well, rebuilding their setups. So it happens we have really old and well, really old setups when each customer, even a small one, got /24. So now such customers are happy with 16 IPv4 addresses. So
Okay,
such
so
customers are giving the addresses back, and, well, sometimes we are even forcing them to give the IPv4 addresses back. So just looking at our burn rate and at our, well, recycling rate and what we already have, this is what we have. And it's not a secret. A year ago we acquired one of our competitors. It was a German company, NetDirect, and one of the factors we considered was the amount of IPv4 addresses they had. So we bought a competitor. We well, we got new place for servers in Frankfurt, which is a really big internet hub, and we also got some IPv4 addresses. That was, well, 100% legal deal, accepted, approved by RIPE, and everything is really okay with RIPE. Actually, we have more issues with ARIN because we have a separate business in US.
You are calculating the value of your IPv4 addresses when you, for example, provide the business information?
If you acquire a company, you...
Do you think of IPv4 as an asset which could be monetized now?
Yes, yes. There is a market for IPv4, and initially, about a year ago, you could buy addresses for about $1 per IPv4 address. You could just buy them. Well, gray, let's call it gray. And actually now it's becoming $6 or $8 per address. It's usually they are rated in dollars, and we also have offers for $10 per IPv4 address. So you can buy /16 for about $500,000. Or if someone wants €500,000, there are also such offers. The problem is, it's slightly out of topic, the problem is there are many companies trying to sell IPv4 addresses which don't belong to them. So there was a company called Network X. That company went bankrupt. They don't have any domains left, nothing, but there are resources. And there is a new company which by accident is also called Network X. They registered the same domains. They even can hire the same guys because, well, if you have John Smith registered as a contact for original company, you may have John Smith, well, the other John Smith, working for a new company, and they are trying to sell you, well, the company, but well, the company is bankrupt. There is nothing there. There are just IPv4 addresses. But we always try to add a paragraph that we don't pay them. We use kind of escrow or other services, and when the deal is not approved by RIPE, they will not get any cent. And usually such guys back up then. So that's the deal. This is just one of the last slides.
Maybe you can finish it.
Okay. Yeah, so the biggest obstacle are our customers who, well, we force them not really too much, but we try to make them use more IPv6, but they don't want to. And sometimes you may be afraid of some things you learned that you heard that it can be really a problem while deploying IPv6, but it's not that bad, and people can really quickly learn and adapt to the new addresses. Just don't tell them it's something new, just tell them it's the new type of IPv4. And well, there are some unexpected problems like we had with Juniper switches. We completely had no idea that a switch, and especially typical layer 2, IPv4 service may block IPv6 traffic. And now if someone has still some questions at the back.
One question. Maybe I won't wait.
Can you use
The question is, have you ever experienced an IPv6 DDoS attack on one of your customers?
Hard to say.
Well, yes or no?
Probably yes, but of course the scale was way lower. Just it's maybe shame to admit, but not so long time ago our routers were not really fully protected about against different types of IPv6 attacks. So IPv6 is sometimes done in hardware, but there are sometimes like IPv6 fragments, there are IPv6 fragmented packets, and other issues which have to go to the CPU, and we faced some problems with the CPU, with a high CPU load being caused by IPv6 packets, but I more think that was a kind of misconfiguration than an attack.
Okay, so do you think now, today, do you think you would be able to protect your customer from such an attack, or not fully, or not yet, or not at all?
Well, the biggest DDoS we had was 140 gigabits, and we could our network worked quite well because we have about 2 terabits of the capacity, and most of the traffic is outwards. So we have more than 1 terabit of, 1.5 terabit of free incoming capacity. So if you just balance the traffic well, it's not a problem at all. I think it will happen, and we have a kind of DDoS. We have some tools that help us to detect DDoS attacks and also to null root some IPs, and they are fully IPv4 and IPv6 ready. We also cooperate with our upstreams like Global Crossing, for example, to have black holing also in their network, and we also have it IPv4 and IPv6 ready.
Okay, thanks.
If you can share this information, of course, what is the main driver for your 400 customers to go to IPv6? What kind of traffic that is? And a second question on top of that, have you considered internally or externally to provide NAT 6-4 or 4-6 to actually speed up the IPv6 implementation?
I have to admit that part of customers, actually maybe even half of those 400 are kind of geek-like customers. So they are customers that, they like toys and gadgets. So they want to try it, and it works, so they enable it. For other customers, this is just, because IPv4 depletion is, got to the mainstream media about a year ago, and you may say it has been there It has been there. So there are some customers who try to be really, proactive, or how they call it, and they requested IPv6 only. And I think these are the main factors. And about the NAT, we don't plan anything like that. The problem is because we don't have any own content. We just have servers, We sell the servers or rack space, but mostly servers, and we provide IP connectivity to the customers. In order to have NAT, well, you have to have a cooperation with customers. And such carrier-grade NAT for such big scale, our traffic is more than 1 terabit. So for such big scale, the NAT solutions would be extremely expensive, and well, for us that would really complicate the setup. And well, we are fully IPv6 ready. The software, I mean Windows, Linux, whatever the customer uses, they are fine with IPv6. So well, the customers can just use the native IPv6 we provide, and they don't need any NAT.
Did you have any problem with firewalling your own website? Because I assume you don't firewall your customers.
Well, we have firewall setups. The customer can actually rent a server which is just bare naked server connected to the internet, or they may have a server behind the firewall. Luckily, all the firewalls we use, they are mostly Cisco ASAs, but we have also some others. After the software upgrade, they support IPv6. So
have you tried it?
Mm-hmm.
Have you tried it?
Yes, we tried.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite sure of the software version, 8.2 or 8.4 or something. Well, I don't go so deep to configure the firewalls, but we have about 10 IPv4 firewall environments, and about half of them have IPv6 deployed, and it works well. Well, at least there were no complaints, and our website is also behind such firewall, and it's also working really good. So maybe there will be some issues, we don't know yet, but we haven't faced them yet.
Thanks.
Any questions? All right, yeah. One more.
Actually, a question, the gentleman asking about IPv6 firewalling. So if you feel that you need some, conversation around Cisco firewalling with IPv6, I can have this conversation, no problem. Thanks.
Any more?
What is the status of your company in RIPE? Is it LIR?
We have actually 2 or 3 local internet registries being currently merged, and we are also ARIN member for US, and we are applying for how it's called, APNIC for Asia Pacific region to also be a registry there. But at RIPE region we have 3 registries which are currently being merged into one.
Okay.
So if there are no more questions, thank you for your attention, and well, use IPv6.
Thank you very much for your speech. Now I would like to invite you for a break. Thank you.